Welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. This is a slightly different feel for this edition. We have no Gareth with us today. He's swimming ridiculous distances across Wales. He decided to celebrate his birthday by swimming 60 kilometres in various reservoirs in various parts of Wales. So tonight we have me, Zog, Alex Goy in another part of London, and Sarah Leach in yet another part of London.
Hello, I'm
good
here.
Good to see you both. Good to see you both and good to hear you. It was a big weekend. This weekend just gone, we've had the biggest motorsport event of the year, the Le Mans 24 Hours. How was it for you guys? Did you catch much of it, Alex? Were you spending much of the weekend watching Le Mans?
I kept abreast of it on the Twitters and via Instagram because one of my various cohorts were out there getting very excited about the racing. Though the impression I got from a lot of what I saw on Twitter was, well, it's almost there, but this year isn't a vintage Le Mans. I didn't. There weren't as many big viral clips going around of exciting things happening, apart from that Glickenhaus having a good old pop at someone on the first corner, and then the man at the end very nearly getting mown down. That was kind of all the viral stuff that came out of it.
Sorry to interrupt.
Sarah, go ahead.
Sophia Florsch went for 6, didn't she? Sophia Florsch.
I was going to say
had a bit of an accident.
More than a bit of an accident.
Yeah.
It was. There was a great deal of action in between those two viral clips for sure. It was actually a very, it was a good race. It was a good event, I would say. I'm sorry I wasn't there. There were, I think they allowed 50,000 spectators this year. The weather was, as it so often is, was good and bad. It was bright sunlight and, tipping it down at different times, but it was the right way around. It started wet and finished in glorious sunshine. And by the time Sunday afternoon rolled around, a lot of what happened was what you might have predicted. Toyota took a 1-2. They weren't that much troubled by the Glickenhaus entries. Alpine definitely had a shout of getting in there, but it would have needed Toyota to have more trouble than they had. Although,
I think Alpine did quite well considering. I was really excited that they were on the podium or made it to the top 3. That's for sure, because they're rebranded this year, and they even had Fernando Alonso there with the Formula 1 car. Yep. It wasn't just any Toyota car that won, right? It was a history-making Toyota car.
Well, it was, as you say, it was the number 7, and Toyota won the previous 3 races, but it's always been the number 8 car that's taken the checkered flag, and the number 7 car has always been the one that's had the worst of the luck. This year it was the other way around. It was the number 8 car that got clobbered at the first corner by a slightly careless Glickenhaus. Yeah, it was a little bit scrappy in that first corner.
A little bit? A little bit? Not bit. There was a big accident. It was a proper crash.
It was. I'm trying not to be too hard on Ply here because it's you're on cold tyres. It's wet.
Am I correct in assuming that the gentleman driving the Glickenhaus could be described as a professional racing driver?
Yes.
So should he know maybe a little bit better than to try and punt the favourites off at the first corner and go, oh, it was wet, oh no, what a nightmare. Whoops. Now you're over there. You shouldn't be over there. You should be on the track with the rest of us. God, what's wrong with you?
He didn't do a terrific job of it in that first corner. But at least both cars were able to continue. It wasn't a race-ending crash for either of them. But Sarah, you mentioned the Flörsch crash. One of many.
It wasn't her fault, right?
That ended somebody's race was it wasn't her fault at all, and it was quite a
shame. That was the all-girl team, all-girl team. Sorry.
It was one of the 2 all-women teams, the number 1 Richard Mille car, and it was a slightly odd incident. There was a first part in which the number 26, I think it was, G-Drive Aurus, lost it, I think trying to overtake the number 1 car, and bumped Severe Flörsch into a spin. she ended up across the track, but then a group of cars came bearing down on her, and one of them just T-boned her car side on, really without any apparent attempt to change direction. It was a really odd looking crash, because you could see from one of the angles that he'd obviously, he started braking a couple of seconds before he hit her car, but didn't try to change direction and just slid straight into the side. But moving further down the field, you mentioned the incident at the end of the race, Alex, which was a heart in the mouth moment, because the LMP2 battle really came alive in the last couple of minutes of the race, having been a good scrap through Saturday afternoon. By as the night rolled around, WRT took a pretty firm hold of the class and were running first and second. And as 4 o'clock local time is rolling around, they were still first and second. The leading Jota still chasing them, very, very, very close behind the second place WRT, but they were looking set for a 1-2. And then on the last lap, the leading WRT, the number 41, just slowed to a crawl and stopped, much like the leading Toyota did a couple of years ago. So the second place WRT takes over the lead with the Jota right behind, and all of a sudden, it is on for the lead of LMP2. They crossed the line less than a second apart, and because they're still racing as they come across the line, and they came across the line, less than a second after the Toyotas, and so you had a really quite a pretty dangerous moment when the Toyotas are doing their 1-2 formation finish over the line, while a few yards behind them, the leading WRT is jinking sideways to avoid a slow Ferrari, and in doing so, comes close enough to the guy with a flag that they were not socially distanced. Let's say that they were. It was.
I mean, it didn't look mega safe. It looks like the kind of thing that you would see on a public information video in the 70s of "Don't play in the road."
Right.
And oh, come on, I'm going to finish the race for everyone. The child is on the M25. Like, it looked so dicey. And you just think, oh, he's getting a bit close. Oh, that other guy, those other cars are going quite slow. Oh, dear, oh my. Is that person about? Oh, thank goodness he's not dead. I mean, maybe just using a bit of critical thinking. Maybe putting a man in the middle of a racetrack waving a flag while 2,000 horsepower, 1,400,000 million horsepower's worth of car comes round, because it's tradition, might not be a smart idea anymore, especially in situations like that.
Yeah,
there is some merit to that.
But it looks good. You got to say it looks good. It makes for some great TV pictures. But at what price?
I do love how motorsport is rooted in so much tradition, because it's part of what makes it wonderful. Oh, why are we doing it like this? Well, we've always done it this way. It is admittedly why a lot of people don't like the idea of Formula E, and it's why a lot of people resist any kind of rule change or any kind of shift in a paradigm. But at the same time, some of those traditions little bit silly, and that might be one of them. Much like the tradition of the Mons Start. Can you imagine trying that these days?
But thinking about tradition, let's just have a quick chat about the Glickenhaus entries, because while they didn't trouble the front runners, they finished 4th and 5th in class, out of a class of 5. They.
Okay, I was about to say, hang on.
But they were in the fine tradition of American privateers coming to Le Mans. Jim Glickenhaus was there throughout the race with his Stetson. They brought what I think were some absolutely beautiful cars to the race. I was cheering them all the way, and I really hope we'll see them back next year, and they can mix it up a bit more with the rest of the hypercar entries. It's always tricky in your first year at Le Mans, and particularly when you're entering a car that you've built yourself as a privateer against Toyota. That was never going to be a very level playing field.
I mean, it would have been a pretty incredible David versus Goliath. Hi, my name's Jim. I used to make films. I had a keen interest in Ferraris, and now I'm building my own Le Mans hypercar. Toyota, I'm going to take you on and win first time out. Brave. That's jazzy. If he'd have done it would have been absolutely brilliant. Bravo to him.
Right.
But it probably wasn't on the cards. But the thing is, it's his first year, and 4th and 5th, not bad.
Not bad at all. No. Looking further back down the field, I think I mentioned that I tend not to follow LMP2 all that closely, to my shame. But this year I was certainly rooting for Juan Pablo Montoya, who never really had a shout of doing particularly well, being in the Pro-Am subcategory of LMP2. But I thought this was a real shame, because I love Montoya. He's a terrific driver. He's got great character. He's a real fighter, very skillful driver. And he is the only driver in the field this year who had a chance of completing the Triple Crown. He's won the Monaco Grand Prix. He's won the Indy 500. And if he wins Le Mans, he will be one of the few drivers to complete the Triple Crown. But he was doing the race in a car that was never going to have a chance of winning.
Really?
And that seems a terrible shame. Yeah, what do we think about that?
I'm not well enough informed to have to throw out anything other than rampant speculation, but perhaps someone offered him a lot of money to do a job and just went, do you want to have a punt? Car might be okay. Let's see what happens.
I should have wondered the same thing, whether he basically says yes to the first guy that rings him up and says, do you want to do Le Mans this year? Come on.
Yeah, go on then. Sounds fun.
Yeah, and I can imagine that he's the kind of chap that if he likes the guy if he likes the team that's rung him up, he's just going to say yes and go and do it. And he may actually not be all that bothered about how competitive he is. He wants to race. He's going to race. And he's going to entertain us. And that Evel Knievel liveried car did look great. Let's hope that Montoya's back another year in a more competitive car, and maybe he can complete the Triple Crown another time.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Deserves it, because that'd be a pretty cool thing to say you've got. But yeah, I think I fear it might be a case of, do you want to go racing? Yeah, go on then. How much do you cost? Enough. Cool. In we go. Let's have fun.
There you go. Well, and I would just to finish this off, I will just mention that speaking of Le Mans traditions, I continued a few of my own Le Mans traditions by sitting down at the start of the race with a fresh baguette, some very ripe camembert, and a glass of cider, and I had my crepe batter all ready to go. In the middle of the night, I had myself some
Guinness,
some Grand Marnier crepes.
Oh, lovely.
Albeit I actually used Cointreau rather than Grand Marnier, because that's what I had. And
very French.
And very absolutely, it's the taste of Le Mans. I think a lot of people who've had those crepes at 3:00 in the morning with the sound of the cars in the background, the smell of the circuit. It's a wonderful energy boost when you're flagging a little bit in the early hours. When we're all at Le Mans together in a future year, I'm sure we'll be able to enjoy that flavour, and you'll be able to experience that yourself. Moving on to other events in the last couple of weeks, we had the conclusion of this year's Formula E Championship. We had the last 2 rounds in Berlin, and you were there on the ground, Sarah.
I was there on the ground. I was. I'll tell all. I was part of the live broadcast. Yes, and I'm telling you, Berlin was hot temperature-wise. And what freaked me out when we got there, it was at an old World War II airfield, Hitler's own. But I do think history says, I think they use it towards the end of the war, but even walking through the big hangar, it's meant to be one of the biggest hangars in the world. I had this eerie feeling of like Nazi Germany, and I probably shouldn't say that, but it kind of did. Anyway.
How was the race, Sarah? Well, it was great, apart from an overwhelming sense of the Third Reich.
Sorry. But let's go back to Berlin. let's get back to...
Wonderful race.
It was the last round of the ABB Formula E Championship, and it was very exciting because Formula E, I think as it is electric cars, they do mix up the format, so it's a little bit more exciting, but because it's got this, boost mode and attack mode and, fan boost and that, they use all that, but it actually, once you get into it and you get used to those sort of, that format, it is actually quite exciting to watch because this, the attack mode that they use, or the boost that they get, they can use it for about 8 minutes during the race, and it really does change up, who's ahead of the field. It's part of their strategy, really. So it's a bit like different to Formula One, where the tyre strategies makes things different. I think the strategy with Formula E, when they use the power boost and things like that. But it was a very interesting end to the season because by the time round 14 came, which was on the Saturday, round 15 on the Sunday respectively, there was 18 drivers that were possible world championship winners because the competition was so tight. So it was all very exciting, and there was a lot of drivers there. Mitch Evans, the New Zealander, he was there. He had Mark Webber as his sort of personal coach, and he was in world championship contention, and it was very exciting. Toto Wolff was there
until the start of the first race. Didn't he have a bit of an incident right at the start of the first?
He had an incident the final race. So they had the race on Saturday. And actually, it was very bittersweet for the winner of the race on Saturday, which was round 14. So it was an Audi driver that won, Lucas de Grassi. So Lucas drove for Audi, and it was quite fitting because that was their last race of the Formula E. They're exiting Formula E next year. So for their own reasons, maybe they're putting the budget into other parts of the business.
They're doing a sort of hybrid Dakar car.
We've lost you there, Alex. Let's come back to Audi leaving the sport in a moment. Let's cover the sporting side of it first, because there's a bit to talk about there with teams leaving, I think.
Everyone's leaving.
But carry on.
So on the Saturday, it was the second last, or the penultimate race of the season, and Lucas de Grassi won that, and he came first for Audi, and fitting because they're exiting the season. And then on the Sunday, by the Sunday there was probably not as many as 18 drivers that could have won. There would have been about a good sort of 5 to 6 that were in contention. At the beginning of the race, everyone was very excited, and we're all down on pit lane. We did all these driver interviews. Jean Todt was there, Mark Webber was there, all very exciting. We get off pit lane and we go in to watch the race into the TV and crew area. And then all of a sudden we heard this big bang, and it was Susie Wolff's driver, Venturi driver, that ran into the back of Mitch Evans, the New Zealander, who drove for Jaguar. And the poor thing, he was in world championship contention, and that pretty much ended his season or his chance of becoming world champion. So that was a bit upsetting for him. So all the safety cars came out. He came off the track, and again they were off. Stoffel van Dorn was on pole. He wasn't really a world championship contender. He ended up coming third. It was NATO from Venturia from Susie Wolff's team that won the race, not the world championship. Then it was Ollie Rowland that came in second, and Stoffel van Dorn third. So that ended the final race of the season. The world champion for Formula E 2021 was Nick de Vries. He's a young Dutchman, and I was very happy for him. He did quite well. All he needed to do in the end was stay on track, because some of the people who were in contention to win the championship title didn't finish. So Mitch Evans was one of them. Jake Dennis was one of them.
Well done, Nick de Vries. And of course he was in action
at Le Mans.
Subsequently, and did very respectively.
So Buemi went over there as well, didn't he?
The Buemi, and there were one or two other drivers.
Was Van Dorn? I'm sure Stoffel van Dorn was driving as well. Was he?
I want to just come back to one thing you said at the start of that of your report there, Sarah.
It's a very odd report.
Mentioned that.
I want to apologise.
Well, you mentioned that I think 18 drivers, almost everybody, could have won the championship going into that weekend.
Mathematically correct, yes.
Yeah. Now, if playing devil's advocate, you could make a case that suggests that there's something slightly artificial about the racing that means that actually the best driver is not guaranteed to have the best chance of winning, and that things are shaken up a little bit too much by things like fan boost and things like this, that it just makes it all a bit too much of a lottery. And maybe that undermines the value of the championship.
I don't know if I definitely don't think it undermines the value of the championship, because I think the value is there. But I think, yes, there could be a bit too many sort of game-like functions. It's like a Super Mario Brothers game from the outside looking in. I do think the attack mode, I think that is good, because it's a bit like a strategy that you can use that isn't necessarily viable in Formula One, but it is this sort of this boost that you get for 8 minutes during the race, that you get the boost from the energy in the car, and that has a lot to do with the fact that it is an electric racing series. I think it's really good. I thought that made it exciting, and having the strategy to when to use that during the race, so that makes the series different. I'm not sure about fan boost, of how viable that is, or how much difference that really makes for the drivers, but there is a level of parity there, and I think they've all got the same amount of battery, and the chassis are sort of similar. There's not too many differences each team can make to the cars. Once you really understand the rules, it's like watching rugby for the first time. You don't understand why they're kicking the ball out on the other end of the field. But when you understand the rules of rugby, you actually really do enjoy watching it. It all makes more sense. It makes more sense. So once you sort of, work out why the drivers are doing X and Y, it's much more enjoyable and fun to watch. But when you understand it, it really is an electric car racing series, and it's all about, say energy and, not using fuel cars. It does kind of make sense. And it ended for a very exciting finish, really, where no one knew at the beginning of the final race of the season who would win the championship. Anyway, that was good in the end.
Yeah, well, if you don't know who's going to win the championship going to the last race, that makes for an exciting race. That makes for some real drama. Yeah. That in itself can't be an entirely bad thing. But as you were saying, Sarah, this is the end for Audi in Formula E, and they're not the only team that's leaving, not the only big name that's leaving. Mercedes are on their way out as well. What does this say about the future of Formula E, and what are those? Where are those companies going to be putting the resources that they would have been putting into Formula E? Where are they taking those resources?
So when these manufacturers came on board, when the Formula E first started, I suppose it was a way of breaking their, or maybe helping market their electric car, road cars as well, a bit like how the Formula One does too. So perhaps they're seeing that the money they're spending on the electric car series isn't necessarily making the money elsewhere. I don't know. But I do know when Formula E first started, the budget was nowhere near as big as what's required now, I don't think.
I think that is quite important here, in that when they came into the sport, it was a relatively cheap way of getting more exposure and also parading their green credential. Maybe they've got a lot of the value that they feel they'll get out of it. Is that a bit cynical, Alex? Is that
what for reasons for people leaving? I mean, Formula E is an interesting one, because the people who really love it and really get into it, and enjoy what it is and what it's all about. But motorsport needs quite a large audience, and to work, doesn't it? And I do wonder whether your Audis, your BMWs, and your Mercedes have just gone, actually, we don't need this anymore to say that we're good at electric cars, because Audi has now released Q4 has come out, the e-tron GT and RS, the big e-tron, the e-tron Sportback, that's 4. There's way more on the way. BMW's bringing out all manner of stuff. Mercedes already has a pretty bustling portfolio of cars. They don't need to be in a race series to say, oh, we can do electric cars, look at us.
And McLaren as well, actually. McLaren are entering in the Extreme E because it's cheaper than the Formula E.
Which is interesting, because an Extreme E car is essentially a Formula E car, but with lifts.
Which is surprising that you would think, you look at those two cars and you think, how much can they have in common? But
well, the power. So I interviewed Alejandro Agag ages ago, and I was like, oh, so what's the kind of the advantage for teams to enter Extreme E? And he's like, oh, marketing. So what about the R&D? Like, oh, that's all done through Formula E. Like the powertrain underneath, it's the same. It's just this one's got to be a little bit more rough and tumble, but that's the chassis, not the.
Yeah, but this is an interesting. This is an interesting thing about electric powertrains, and this has been an advantage from the earliest days of things like diesel electric armoured vehicles, for example. One of the advantages of having this kind of arrangement is that you have much more freedom to move around your components inside your vehicle to suit where you want to put people, or or large racks of ammunition, or whatever it might be. You're no longer restricted by where your drive wheels are, and then having to have your gearbox right there and that kind of stuff. So it makes sense actually that you could relatively easily transfer a lot of this stuff between Formula E and Extreme E.
Well, the car that they made for Extreme E, it's called the Odyssey 21, and it's an amazing sort of development that they've done. They've been developing it for a couple of years. But it looks fantastic. I mean, the tyres are huge. The tyres have been developed by a company called Continental, which I'm sure both of you are very aware of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I have some Continental tyres in the cellar at the moment on a set of old Cup alloys, I think.
Oh, there you go. Well, there's a driver called Michaela, and she drives for, I'm pretty sure it's Lewis Hamilton's team. She's Continental's tyre test driver. And I think they're going to interview her this week in Greenland because we're doing a little story on the Odyssey 21. The interesting thing I think that came out of that and my research is they're actually using a plant called the flower called the dandelion to help develop their rubber. Have you ever heard of that?
They're using dandelions.
I know. Can you believe it? I swear. I am being serious. It's on their website.
No. Well,
it's like in a greenhouse. They're developing these dandelions, and so that particular plant is helping develop the rubber for these tires. That is their 2030 vision. Now.
This is intriguing. I mean,
I'm telling you the absolute truth. Where is our chat?
Yeah,
I'm going to send you the link.
I can believe it, and this doesn't sound entirely crazy because. My first reaction to that is, I know that when you break the stalk of a dandelion, you get a white milky sappy substance comes out, which I seem to remember from years ago was supposed to be a little bit similar to the kind of white milky stuff that comes out when you tap a rubber tree. And let's remember that all rubber, that there may be artificial rubbers now, but originally, if you wanted rubber, you had to go and find a rubber tree, tap it.
And get it from a tree.
Yeah, get it from a tree. Yeah.
Tyres don't grow on trees.
Actually, they do. So, well, dandelion tyres. Well,
yeah.
I'll
find this link for you right now and send it.
Oh, Zog, I've got the name of the tie-in drink. If your tyres are made of dandelion, you can have a can of dandelion and burnout.
Hey, babe.
Oh,
thank you. Thank you. He'll be here all week, folks. Don't forget to try the beer.
I'll be here all week. And I will be as disappointed in me as you all are right now.
Elon Musk has announced that he is going to be building sentient robots very soon, so there will be an army of Musk bots around to worry us. However, we will be saved from destruction by Audi-badged Transformers that are going to come marching over the horizon, Optimus Prime style, and save us from the killer Musk bots. Did I read too much into the Audi concept car, Alex, or is that about right?
So the Musk bots is hilarious just because it was announced, if memory serves, it was announced by someone walking on stage dressed as a Musk bot will look. So basically, an actor in a morph suit waddled onto stage and did the robot or some nonsense like that. And Elon Musk it's going to do all the repetitive tasks. It'll be out in about 10 years or something. Like, I read something where he said that, it's not straight away, it's not round the corner, it's a decade away or something like that. And I was thinking, so far, Tesla doesn't owe us, but owes us a Cybertruck and a Roadster. the Roadster, which is going to accelerate to 0 to 60 quicker than anything's ever accelerated before, less than 2 seconds is uncomfortable. So that just blows my mind. So the whole Mustbot thing is it kind of it smells a little bit like him going, you know what we need, guys? We need something to distract from the fact that the Roadster isn't out yet, and neither's a Cybertruck, and neither's this, and neither's that, and we need more money, we need more investment, we need to get people excited. Why don't we give them the synthetic beings out of Star Trek Picard, and let's gloss over the fact that they destroyed Mars. Let's ignore that bit. But yeah, here's a robot, everyone. Da! So that just that ick, just gross. However, Audi far more exciting because they've made a car that can. Let's see if I'm going to phrase this one of two ways. And I'm going to let you decide which one you want to leave.
Which one we keep in the show? Okay.
Yeah, which one we keep in the show? They've made a car that basically can have an erection.
Wow, that's interesting.
This is the kind of pioneering work that I feel car designers are not doing enough.
Does the car have hormones?
You press a button and it gets longer.
I've been ready for that the whole of my life.
Like it's a ridiculous idea. So anyway, another intro for you. They've made a car that can get longer, depending on what you want to do with it. It's a ridiculous thing, and I kind of love it. So Audi's got three concepts on the way. Skysphere is the first, which hints at a future electric roadster. There will also be a Grand Sphere, which is basically an A8, and an Urban Sphere, which I imagine will be a little utility pod. The idea of this one is it's a redefinition of Grand Touring, per the Autocar story I'm basically reading. Per Autocar, it's a redefinition of Grand Touring. So it has a variable wheelbase. The idea here is that, one, it's a sort of big luxury GT thing that you can just sort of swan around in. It'll do level 4 autonomy, but it's a concept. They could say it can walk, and fine, it does. And then you can sort of shorten it up and turn it into a sports car. I think.
You can. And to be fair, I've seen the concept car do that on video. You press the button and the car gets shorter. Yeah, I kind of love it as well. I mean, it's there is a certain, there's a certain dynamic thing that has to do with what your wheelbase is. That means that a car does handle differently if you chop 250 millimeters out of it, and their line that you want the longer wheelbase for your luxurious grand touring self-driving moments and journeys, and then when you want to take over control yourself and drive a little sports car, you press the button, it gets shorter, the steering wheel pops out, and away you go. Yeah, I kind of love it, and it does make some kind of sense. But it does also make me think that maybe manufacturers are having to work a little bit harder in this, imminent future where there's more autonomy going on. People are actually often less involved with driving the car. And this is presenting a bit of a challenge. And also the powertrain is electric, which for all its benefits has less character than an internal combustion engine powertrain. So is this a sign that manufacturers are having and designers having to work harder to make us interested in their cars?
It's a tough one because the whole electric car's powertrain isn't exciting. Like, I get that, but at the same time, it's been 10 years since proper mass-produced electric cars. What Nissan Leaf was 2011, whatever it was, maybe 2010, right? So we're still very much frontier tech. We're still figuring out what's going on. We're sort of EV 1.3. We're not on to 2.0 yet. And the character, I think, that's a thing that's going to come back in, because right now everybody's got access to battery, big motor, glue two together, see what happens. And in the case of this, it's 642 horsepower and 553 pound-foot. So it will be fast. We're going to get speed, but because of big battery, they're all going to be heavy. Audi's saying this is going to be 1,800 kilos. it's big, it's long, it can be slightly longer, it's wide, it's in theory, quite a powerful, luxurious thing. Will it be exciting to drive? Don't know. I mean, I've not driven the e-tron GT. I drove the e-tron Sportback and the regular e-tron, and they were big, heavy SUVs. But there's lots of room for batteries, and there's lots of room for everything in there, and that's on a custom powertrain. I drove the rear-wheel drive Porsche Taycan. That's a genuinely good car to drive. It's great. It feels like a sports car type thing. I mean, it does feel big and heavy because it is big and heavy. But I think we're a ways away from the MX-5 being full of batteries and feeling like an MX-5. I think that the losing the internal combustion engine, that is just one element of the vehicle. You also have the weight, you have how it handles, how it's been tuned to handle, and how it sounds. Yeah, you do lose some of that, but artificial sounds are being pumped into these things all the time, like in the Taycan, like in the there's a bit of one in e-tron. I drove the Everati signature Porsche 964 the other week, and that's a 964 911 with batteries in it. It's electric, and they give you a sort of synth flat six, and you know what I found? Better with it off. You don't need the noise because the way the power's delivered is so smooth. No, you don't have to wring the neck of these things. You just give it a bootful and it goes. It's very easy to dismiss electrification. And it's very easy to say it's all rubbish because everything sounds the same. But I think it's one of those things where when I was a kid, I thought all cars were as fast as one another because they all have engines and they all have wheels and they all look like cars. So in my mind, a Ferrari was as quick as my mum's Metro. In theory,
a lot of the time that might be true.
In traffic, everyone's stuck at the same speed. But what people don't realise is they just see, especially car enthusiasts who tend to be quite vocal and don't really like to diverge from what they're doing. They like what they like, and they refuse to go the other way.
They've fallen in love with a certain kind of thing often, and they're very attached to that thing.
Yeah. It's easy for people to say that electrification is such a big, real thing that's coming, and a lot of people view this kind of thing as not as an advancement or a change in technology, but as an affront on what they love and what kind of keeps them going. So, in order to make this stuff exciting, if to someone who says I'm never going to buy an electric car, all of a sudden they get to 2035, and their only option is an electric car. You have to build a base. All of these things, they are concepts now are more important than ever because it's showing people what the future not only is going to look like, but really what it can do. Whereas concepts in the past would be like, oh, well, it's all electric and it's got 1,000 brake horsepower, but also it previews what the next Ford Mondeo might look like. But you only really get the Mondeo bit. Now we're getting powertrain innovation, we're getting sort of realistic powertrain innovation, because you can say, we'll give this car 625 horsepower, and know you'll be able to do it. Okay, maybe a Sky Sphere of the future won't be able to extend its wheelbase, and maybe we're a bit away from level 4, but will there be an Audi that looks like a Sky Sphere in the future? Almost certainly. Take a look at the original TT concept, for example. A few years later, the TT came out. The Le Mans concept, that is an Audi R8. All of those things are there and waiting. So this, whether people like it or not, is the future of Audi. And I think it's a more realistic Audi future than a concept, say, 15 years ago.
And it is beautiful. So bring it on. Daniel Ricciardo, good to see you here. You're looking happy as always. Have you been enjoying the break?
Yeah, I've been enjoying the downtime. With the longer season, it's good to have a break and recharge, see family and friends. I've been training, but I've also had a couple big nights out with mates. Had a real rager in LA. Kanye West was there. I think I might have stolen one of his iguanas. Don't know, a lot was happening. And we ran into Simon Cowell. Bought him tequila shots and were ragging on him about what to do next after X Factor. Start an animal rescue charity, retrain as a teacher, present a new Top Gear knockoff. He what now?
Okay, let's just wrap things up by having a quick chat about what Simon Cowell is doing next. Simon Cowell. X Factor is coming to an end, and he wants to make a Top Gear competitor. I mean, it's a bit too easy to take the piss out of this idea, but let's go ahead anyway.
I mean, can I just ask, for which network? Because there is a rumour that there might be a car show coming out on ITV next year.
I don't think there's anything as specific as network or anything really beyond Simon Cowell saying, I want to do a car show. A bunch of people said I should do a car show. I want to do a car show.
Hang on, let me get this straight. Now, when you say car show, there is so many car shows out there in the ether. There is car shows about rebuilding a car, all those different reality TV cars.
The thing is, most automotive TV right now is, we need to rebuild this car in some short period of time, and that's all it's going to be. And we might tell you a bit of interesting story. It's all build shows and Top Gear.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd be very interested to know what the format would be, whether it would be high-end supercars or it would be a bit like Top Gear. Top Gear is basically just a comedy show, really, isn't it, with the use of cars?
Yeah.
I do wonder whether there really is much room for something else that's trying to be a new Top Gear, which sounds as if that is Cowell's intention.
Can I ask, when did he make this announcement that he was interested in doing a car show?
Last week.
In the last couple of weeks, yeah. Who are we to tell Simon Cowell what kind of TV format he should do next, But on the other hand, he's also, his next TV show doesn't really have to be a success. He can do whatever the hell he wants. And maybe this is just, whatever the hell he wants to do. To be fair, he did put in he put in a very fast lap when he appeared on Top Gear and did their star and reasonably priced car. I think he didn't he head the timesheet at that point. He was very good.
He was very fast, I think. Yeah.
And he's got he's got a pretty big collection of lovely cars. He's certainly an enthusiast. I'm sure he would know. I'm sure he'd know what he was talking about up to a point. So. Maybe we should give him a chance, but I'm just not sure that really the world needs another car show presented by a middle-aged
someone who has a lot of money and a lot of cars. Yeah, well, you know what? I there's always in my book there's always room for car content and car telly and all that, because different media has different audiences and different types of media appeals to different people. If he's going to try and take on Top Gear by making Top Gear but with Simon Cowell, that'll be a bit weird. I think there's lots of scope there to make lots of stuff. Lord knows I've pitched enough to enough people. But it depends on how it's done, how it's shot, because if you are going to take on Top Gear, they employ the best. Like, they do not muck around. The Top Gear's films are some of the most beautiful out there.
Yeah.
So it has to look amazing.
Let's see what comes of it. Sarah, Alex, lovely to catch up with you. Lovely seeing you. And
should we ask Gareth how he's currently in Wales swimming? That's right, correct?
Right now, he's in a reservoir somewhere, being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I think we've got the better deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gareth is right now in some fairly chilly, recovering from swimming, probably in a fairly chilly reservoir. So yeah, we do have the best deal. So thank you all for joining us. It's goodbye from me, and from Sarah Leach.
Goodbye.
From Alex Goy.
Bye.
And we leave you with another Kraftwurst track that we've managed to unearth from the archives. This is Zuffenhausen.
Weary See pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to GarethJones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!